Let's go ahead and bend some rules. Hello everybody, I'm Ian with Board Feelings, and today we're talking about a brand new game that I actually found pretty interesting. Spoiler alert. It is Rulebenders by Brewer and designed by Vandeweyer. When I initially saw this game, I read the description and I was like, okay, it's Flux the card game, but maybe more strategic. Because in the game, you're going to be adjusting the rules of play during the game. But then I started reading the rule book, and then I actually played the game, and I was like, you know, it does have a feeling of Flux in the sense that you do change the rules, but it is so much better than that. So let me give you a quick overview. Rulebenders takes place over 4 rounds. Each round plays essentially the same. On a turn, a player can either place one of their control cubes in one of the 7 area control locations, or they can play a card by paying its cost. Once all players have passed, either by necessity or by choice, the round ends, and then you move to scoring, where you look at all 7 area majority locations and see who controls each specific area. Whoever does control the area gets to make 2 very important decisions. The first thing they can do is adjust the rule that area dictates for the next round. The second thing they can do is move their personal disc on what's called the evolution track. It's hard to describe on camera, but essentially the rules that the players abide by are depicted by that area, but then each individual player has individual rules that can modify that. So just a quick example, one of the areas dictates hand limit. If I won the hand limit area, I can set next round's hand limit to maybe 6 cards. But then I can move my disc to the +2 spot, so that way I actually can have 8 cards in my hand limit. I'll get to other things that can be manipulated later, but just know that those are the 2 things that you do when you win an area. This repeats for 4 rounds, and at the end, whoever has the most credits wins the game. So what makes this game so interesting? Well, one of the things I kind of buried the lead on. You see, on the game board there are 5 decks of cards. One of them is called the Flexo deck and is there every game no matter what. The other 4 are themed decks that actually come from a group of 6 different themed decks that could be in play. These themed decks all play entirely different. So depending on your play group and play style, you can swap out different themes to have different play experiences. For example, if you really like Take That, perhaps use the zombie theme, or if you're more interested in strategy, maybe the sci-fi theme is better for you. The fact that you can swap out these different themes makes it very replayable. So that's one of the interesting things, and the second is actually the main part of the game, the fact that you can manipulate the rules. I've talked about one of the rules being hand limit. That kind of is simple and makes sense. Some of the other rules are like how many cards do you draw at the beginning of the round, or how many cubes do you get at the beginning of the round, or what is the active theme, because the active theme dictates what cards you can potentially play. But my favorite, absolute favorite rule that gets changed in this game is the currency. Yes, I've already talked about credits, but in the game there are actually 3 types of currency: cards, cubes, and credits. And the fact that the active currency can change can adjust your playstyle. For example, if cards are the active currency and a certain card you want to play has a cost of 1, you must discard a card in order to play that, thus removing a card from your hand that you potentially wanted to play. The second currency are cubes, and I've kind of talked about cubes already, because on your turn you can place a cube on one of the 7 area control locations. These cubes dictate who is currently winning that specific area. So if you're spending those cubes on cards instead of placing them in the area control locations, you're essentially removing your ability to control those areas. And the last one, which I already talked about, is credits. The problem with spending credits for cards is credits are the victory points at the end of the game. So every time you're playing a card, you're also spending victory points. So this push and pull of people changing the currency and you moving up and down evolution tracks and you attempting to modify the rules in your favor is a really fun and interesting puzzle. It's not a tight game. I never felt that the game was hurting me by like my hand limit was dropping really low, or I didn't have a lot of cubes, or I wasn't getting enough money. I never felt hindered in any way, but each round was its own little puzzle trying to adjust to those rules. But with that, let's go and talk about what's going to be people's biggest problem with Rulebenders. Rulebenders is very much a take-that game. Yes, you can have decks that are less take-that-y than others, but even in the rule bending themselves, there are take-that elements. For example, if somebody sees that I'm drawing a lot of fantasy cards and I'm using fantasy as a main strategy, they can change the active deck to something besides fantasy, thus locking me out from being able to use it. Now I can use my personal disc on the evolution track to get around that restriction, but it's something I have to plan for. So if you were averse to any form of take that, I would definitely stay away from Rulebenders. But for me personally, I just found the interaction so fun and so interesting, and the take that kind of funny and exciting that it didn't bother me at all. So how do I feel about Rulebenders? Well, honestly, I was surprised, and I still am surprised with how much I like this game. Is it a fantastic game? I wouldn't necessarily say that, but if you're looking for a good time, have a chance to play it, and if you find it on the cheap, I would say definitely give it a play. It will be a fun experience, and you probably won't hate yourself. Anyways, those are my feelings on Rulebenders, but what's another game that lets you modify the rules during play? Leave your thoughts and feelings in the comments below, and I'll go experience many board feelings.